every year around this time, as we get closer to the NFL draft, we start hearing some different rumors, different discussions about trade possibilities, teams looking to move up, teams looking to move down, what have you. Some of them seem crazy and off the wall, which means they might be closer to reality than we actually think. Some of them seem to be so sensible that there's no way they couldn't happen, and therefore they never do happen. And then there are some that we hear that kind of make sense, and they do end up happening. One of these scenarios that I've heard talked about a lot over the past couple of weeks is whether or not the San Diego Chargers are potentially looking to move on from Phillip Rivers. Would they be looking to trade him to Tennessee to reunite him with his old offensive coordinator in San Diego, Ken Whisenhunt, now the head coach of the Tennessee Titans, to be able to get up to that number 2 overall pick to be able to select Marcus Mariota out of Oregon? Now, I understand why some people are talking about this as a possibility. You're looking at the San Diego Chargers. As good as Phillip Rivers has been over the years, this is a guy who's going to be 34 this year. He's entering the tail end of his career. He's carrying a very, very big cap figure now. He's also going to be a free agent at the end of the season, and there's not any guarantees that you'll be able to get a long-term contract extension done with him. There's also the thought process of you've had him for all these years, and where has it really gotten you even recently? I mean, you've been a borderline playoff team the past 2 years. In this past season, you didn't even make the playoffs. So at the end of the day, if you're just kind of toiling in mediocrity and you're not at a championship level and you've got a guy that's already in his mid-30s knowing that a decline is going to come sooner rather than later, why would you hang on to this guy and pay him a ton of money for sentimental value's sake when at the end of the day, it's not about sentimental value, it's about championships and winning championships, and Rivers has never won you a championship and might not very well ever win you a championship. Why would you want to sit there and continue down the road to the point where you would ride him for so long, where even if you had him for another 5-6 years, you could get to the point where things got really bad at the tail end, and then there's no sentimental value to him being around, and you've spent a lot of money for nothing on him. And then there's also that appeal of getting that new guy. It's like what they once did when they had Drew Brees already in the fold. He was a second-round pick back in 2001. Come 2004, they made their draft day move to trade down to get Phillip Rivers. And then he sat on the bench for 2 years. And then they had their guy for the next decade. And maybe some Chargers fans and the Charger organization perhaps will be looking at it and seeing a guy like Mariota and seeing that, hey, this is a possibility. We have the trade chip. We have the commodity. We have the ability to potentially make this happen. The time might be now to make this happen. Build around that next new quarterback so that way our organization is taken care of for the next 10 to 12 years to come. I understand it. And then from the Tennessee Titans standpoint, you might look at it and say you might not think Mariota is worth the number 2 overall pick in this draft, that you're a team that is bad on all sides of the ball, that you lack any type of identity, and that you need serious work, and is really spending the number 2 overall pick on a quarterback the best way for you to go, especially with the guy in Ken Whisenhunt who hasn't exactly shown a great history to want to work with younger quarterbacks. He seems to prefer veteran quarterbacks as a result. Would he really want to sit there and tie his future to a guy like Marcus Mariota, especially for a Titans organization who might be somewhat gun-shy to do so after what happened with Jake Locker? But I sit here and I look at this scenario and I ask, should the Chargers trade Phillip Rivers? Should the Tennessee Titans trade for Phillip Rivers? And the answer is unanimous no. Instead of going through pros and cons and this and that or everything else, trying to guide you in one direction or another, it's just flat out no. This is not a scenario that seems to make a whole lot of sense to me. I understand where it might make sense from a John Madden football standpoint or from a standpoint of kind of fantasy of, well, this is this and this is that. It didn't make sense for any party involved. I look at it first from the San Diego Chargers standpoint. Right now, as it stands with Phillip Rivers, they have him under contract through 2015. They have the potential with the franchise tag to be able to have him under control through the organization all the way through 2017. That's at least 3 more seasons. Yes, you'd be paying him a lot. You'd be giving him a huge cap figure than each of the next 3 seasons. But you have the potential to be able to lock up this guy until age 36 via the contract this year and then the next 2 years of franchising him. And then maybe being able to have the potential to being able to walk away from him before he really, truly all the way declines in his career. You also look at it from the standpoint of the Chargers as well. You know, yeah, you can sit there and say they've never really won shit with Phillip Rivers. They haven't won a championship with him. But does it really make sense to move on from a Phillip Rivers, a guaranteed, proven franchise caliber quarterback that maybe different things haven't worked out or this has happened or that has happened and that's the reason you haven't made it to a championship game, you haven't won a Super Bowl, to replace him with a guy in Mariota who you're not even guaranteed is going to be a great fit at the NFL level, who may or may not, depending on your opinion, be the best quarterback even in this 2015 NFL draft class? Does that really make a lot of sense, especially when you're talking about a Chargers team that's not really in a rebuild mode? You're also talking about a Chargers team that, is not the youngest either. Does it really make any sense to sit there and take a Rivers out of the equation if he can only win 8 or 9 games with this team that he has around him? What the hell are you going to do with Marcus Mariota? I mean, seriously, you have to think about that. You don't have the weapons on offense surrounding him to be able to cushion the blow of taking on a rookie quarterback like a Mariota, and you most certainly don't have the defensive special teams of a high enough caliber in place to be able to fully carry the team while you would transition and adjust to being built around that rookie young quarterback. It just, to me, doesn't make a whole lot of sense for the San Diego Chargers. It is a very lateral, mostly downgrade type of move, especially in the short term. Now, maybe in the long term, it makes some sense. And sometimes that's what matters the most is the long-term vision. But it's even really hard to see where that long-term vision matters because you could bring a Mariota into the fold and then 2 to 3 years later you're having to completely and totally rebuild anyways, even if Mariota establishes himself to be a franchise guy, but you're going to have to bring in so many different pieces around him. It just doesn't seem to make a lot of sense to me. And then I look at it from the Tennessee Titans standpoint. It doesn't make a lot of sense for them to trade for Phillip Rivers for a few reasons. Number one, I understand he's a proven franchise quarterback. But at the end of the day, Phillip Rivers hasn't won a championship in San Diego in a better organization, in a better situation with a better team surrounding him. What the fuck makes you think in his mid-30s that he's going to be able to do so under Ken Whisenhunt with the Tennessee Titans? Furthermore, based off of most recent NFL history, especially over the past decade or so, trading for a quarterback from somebody else to come in might get you to the playoffs, but it most certainly isn't going to win you a Super Bowl. As if you are the Tennessee Titans, you are bad for a reason because you suck. You have drafted poorly. You have made bad decisions. You have missed on a previous young quarterback in Jake Locker. You're in the situation that you're in for a reason. Bringing in a guy like Phillip Rivers might help you a little bit in the short term, but by the time you built up the rest of the infrastructure around him to the point where you could even entertain the thought of potentially being a championship team, again, Rivers is now 36, 37 years old. You got a shit ton of cap money, cap space tied up into him, and he's descending on the tail end of his career. If you're a team that wants to build a championship caliber club in today's NFL, you must draft your quarterback. This is not an opinion. This is a fucking documented fact. And if the Tennessee Titans want to become anything other than a mediocre, inconsequential, lacking in identity organization, they must draft a guy, draft the right guy, and then build their organization around him. Going and getting a guy like Phillip Rivers is nothing but a knee-jerk, panic, reflex, reactionary move designed to try and help pathetically save Ken Whisenhunt's job in the short term. You don't do that. You don't sit there and trade a number 2 overall pick in the draft for a guy that's already going to be 34 years old this year. That makes absolutely no freaking sense, especially when you don't have the same type of talent around him in Tennessee as you would in San Diego, and even the talent around him on the offensive side of the ball in San Diego isn't that particularly great. What the hell is he going to do in Tennessee? This just makes absolutely no sense for any parties involved. And even when you're talking about trying to put together a package, if you're the San Diego Chargers, Phillip Rivers, even at going to be 34 this year, is a proven top 10 quarterback in the NFL. Some might argue even maybe top 5 to 7. Franchise guy, nonetheless. I'm not trading a franchise quarterback for just the number 2 overall pick in the draft, not even the number 1 pick, to get a guy who's not even proven to me that guaranteed he's going to be a franchise quarterback. Now, I personally believe that Marcus Mariota will develop into one, but as I've stated numerous occasions before, similar to a Ryan Tannehill, it might take 3 to 4 years to begin to really see that play out. Why, if I'm the Chargers, would I just trade Phillip Rivers for the number 2 overall pick and that's it? And I most certainly am not going to give up anything else to be able to move up that far. If anything, I'm going to sit there and demand that the Tennessee Titans give me the number 2 overall pick this year and their first-round pick next year and maybe a third-round pick next year for the honor of being able to take on Phillip Rivers in his advancing age and his increasing salary cap figure. And if you're the Tennessee Titans, why the hell would you sit there and give up the number 2 overall pick in this year's draft and potentially other picks down the road, knowing damn good and well that Phillip Rivers might only play for your organization for a couple of seasons and you're not guaranteed of anything and that it's going to work out at all? I get where people want to talk about this and think about this, but this just makes absolutely no fucking sense for anybody. It makes 0 sense for the San Diego Chargers, and most certainly of all, it makes even less than 0 sense. It makes negative sense for the Tennessee Titans. The Tennessee Titans have the 2nd overall pick in the 2015 NFL Draft. This is not the great draft class that I thought maybe 6 months ago it was going to be, especially now that I've watched it. You have a chance to get one of 2 young quarterbacks that could potentially be a franchise guy. There's not a guarantee that either one of them will be, but both of them could potentially be. If you are the Tennessee Titans and you take somebody like a Leonard Williams, you're a moron. If you do this or you do that, you're stupid. Whichever one is available, Mariota or Winston, is the guy that you must take and you must gamble the farm on. You must build the organization around, because that's how a championship organization is built. You don't bring in a veteran quarterback to win a Super Bowl. Hell, the Broncos brought in Peyton fucking Manning, and how the hell did that work? Tell me the last time a team won a Super Bowl with a veteran quarterback they brought in via trade or free agency. I will tell you the last 3 times that I can recall it happening was Drew Brees with the 2009 Saints. It was freaking Brad Johnson with the 2002 Buccaneers. And it was Trent Dilfer with the 2000 Baltimore Ravens. A game manager at very best, a former flop of a first-round pick. A guy that was an average to good NFL quarterback, and then a future first ballot Hall of Famer. It doesn't happen a lot. And when it does, it's not a guarantee of any damn thing, and it's a fluke sometimes, if anything else. But the pattern is you build your organization around a young quarterback, just like the San Diego Chargers have done for the past decade with Phillip Rivers. This makes no sense for any party involved. This just sounds like one of these things that's meant and designed to drum up some interest in the NFL draft and in these organizations, and maybe even by the Tennessee Titans to drum up some trade interest in that number 2 overall pick. But I don't buy it. If the San Diego Chargers would actually be considering trading Phillip Rivers, I think they're stupid. They have all the leverage right now. They have Rivers under contract this year. They have the potential to franchise tag him for 2 more years. They also have an organization right now that is closer to winning now than winning later, and as a result, they must go all in now. Instead of blaming it on Rivers, maybe build a better team around him and really take a run at it. Really build yourself to beat the Denver Broncos, at least try and win that goddamn AFC West division, if anything else. And I understand, again, from the Chargers standpoint, maybe they're trying to envision life after Peyton Manning in that division, and they want to rule that division for the next 5 to 7 years, not so much worry about this year. But again, who's to say that you do that with Mariota, especially based off of the way the Chargers are constructed? And in terms of the Tennessee Titans, you want to beat Andrew Luck, then you need to find your own guy. If you want to be able to keep up with the Indianapolis Colts, then you must keep up with them the way the Indianapolis Colts did their thing. To sit there and bring in a veteran quarterback a la the Houston Texans and what they did years back with Matt Schaub is stupid. It's counterproductive, and it's not going to get you anywhere other than an early playoff exit after 2 or 3 years. And a whole lot of money spent with nothing accomplished long term. It's that simple. So should the San Diego Chargers trade Phillip Rivers? Hell no! Should the Tennessee Titans even be thinking about trading for Phillip Rivers? Hell no! One of these unique situations where I don't think something that so many people take to be so seriously and such a great idea makes sense for either fucking party involved.